Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the School of Visual Arts, for those of you visiting, and welcome to the MFA in Design Criticism. My name's Alice Twemlow, and I'm the chair of the programme. It's great to see you all. I really love Tuesdays, actually. Not just because of the fabulous speakers that we have on our full lecture series coming up. Please do come along and see more of them. And for ones you've missed, you can always check out the videos on our website. But I also love Tuesdays because, for a couple of other reasons, just because, well, firstly, I get to put the students on the spot by making them ask questions in front of all these people, which is always fun. But also, really, it's a chance where we get to open the doors to the public and sort of really start to build here a community, to foster a forum and a centre and a hub for discourse surrounding design criticism. And that's always been sort of part of the mission here at this at DCRIT. So that's why it makes me very happy to see you here. And to that end, please do join us for more conversation in the hub of our reading room after the lecture, where we'll be serving refreshments. So yeah, if you miss any of our lectures, you can watch them online. If you are interested in the programme at all, please talk to me after the lecture and visit our website, which is at dcrit.sva.edu. Very simple. Follow us on Twitter and all of that good stuff. We're very excited here at DCRIT about the intersection of design and film. And that's because of the richness of this as subject matter. Many of our students write about this, the ways in which design plays a role in the development of plot and persona and the creation of mood in films. We all, often know, I'm sure we can name many films where design is just as much of a character in the movie as the main actors. But we also embrace film here as a means of conducting design criticism. So for the regulars here, I say this all the time, but for us, design criticism is not just writing. We have a video essays workshop in which students learn about narrative structure, strong ideas and beautiful images, and use their iPhones to create short films that provide visual commentary on design. We've only just started this, so it's kind of a program in formation, and the instructor is sitting over there. That's Adam Harrison Levi, so you can blame him. But it's lots of good fun. And I can think of no better person to provide inspiration for such a course and for our continued reflection on the role of design in film and film in design criticism than our speaker tonight. Jane Nisselson is the founder of the film production studio Virtual Beauty, whose Webby-nominated short films focus on the intersection of design, science, and engineering, and beauty, and where the sensibility is, as she puts it, equal parts Vogue and popular mechanics. Sounds an interesting combo. Jane delights in the challenge of filming invisible things and processes, just as here at DCRIT we delight in the challenge of using words to bring images and objects to life. Jane has directed short videos for the Corning Museum of Glass, International Flavors and Fragrances, MoMA, The New School, Popular Mechanics, Seed Media, and on and on. She's accomplished, wonderful, erudite, brilliant, witty, visual, beauty, engineering, science, all of this. So please join me in welcoming filmmaker, documentarian, essayist, one of the above, or all three, Jane Nisselson. Ooh, that worked well. Do you want this to go in here?
Yeah, that's great. Okay, hi. I have a very soft spot in my heart for what I call the D-critters, because I actually used to be write myself before I was computer programming up at MIT and then making films. So this lecture, which I'm going to give tonight, I haven't given, but it's really going to be a double feature. First, it's about my work, but secondly, it's about how do you build a film and what are new structures on film. And the reason why I think this is very relevant to you is all of you, I'm sure, will be making films at some point in your career with so many different venues for publishing films, whether it's a 10-second film on Vine or on a blog or for a company's channel, you'll probably be making films. So I want to inspire you to come up with some new approaches. So I'm going to, this is the structure of my lecture, so you're going to see I'm going to have to zip through, because I have about 15 films to show by myself and other people. One of my favorite quotes is by the filmmaker Peter Greenaway, who was very fond of ordering films with numbers and the alphabet and killing by numbers and the draftsman's contract. He says, cinema is far too rich and capable a medium to be left merely to the storytellers. And my experience making films about design and science and engineering has made me have to come up with some new structures, which you'll see. And it's made me feel that there's more than one way to make a film than telling a story, which I will get to. So constructing, designing, and building a film. And what I do is try to explain very visually complex subjects. So as Alice was saying, you know, I always say if it isn't invisible, I won't make a film about it. So the topics, if it's the electromagnetic spectrum or molecules, there is no beginning, middle, and end. There's no ostensible cause and effect. It's usually a type of collection or a process. Building films comes very naturally to me. I'm a child of the 50s, and my enlightened mother bought me these giant Eames cards, which I spent a huge amount of time staring at and building different structures with. You can see the how-to instruction booklet complete with the diagram. So this naturally gave me an inclination to build things. I'm going to show how much these cards influence me because for some reason each card represents a focus in my interest. So first I'm going to show you a quick collection from different films I've made to just give you a sense of my approach towards inventing. Get a sense there of the different type of media which I pull into my filmmaking. First of all, someone from MoMA called my work engineering porn, which when you start looking at through that lens, you see like a lot of sort of dripping and fumbling, or not fumbling about, drilling and things like that. So oddly enough, one of my first attempts at making a science film was about the electromagnetic spectrum. And I got it into my mind that there was this audience. I was making a lot of films about fashion and beauty, and I got it into my mind that all these people that were into design didn't really know much about the world around them, and that it was really beautiful and great, and I just had to get their attention, and I didn't like Nova films. You know, they were too dry, and the voiceover and the dramatic music, so I thought, okay, I'm going to make my own type of science film. And the structure of this is the electromagnetic spectrum, which has 9 different parts. So I decided to have 2 girls, a very sexy girl playing ping pong. So I thought, even if somebody's not interested in the electromagnetic spectrum, they'll want to watch the girl. And it's on YouTube, and there's a lot of like hot babes, and thank you for getting me through my physics test. But at the same time, it took me about a month to storyboard it, shoot it, another month to edit it, but as I say, it took me 2 years to learn the quantum mechanics. So you can see the movie is really based on a diagram. This is the electromagnetic spectrum. There are many different representations. This goes from high frequency to low frequency. This does the opposite, where it's going, this also goes from high frequency to low frequency. This is the vertical representation, so it's not even a fixed representation. And I picked the ping pong partly because there's a big dispute about electromagnetism, whether it's particles or waves. So I figured the ping pong ball was the particle, and the way it bounced was the energy or the wave. This is a diagram of how the frequency is allocated in the US. And here we go. The music's by Pat Wynn. It's actually an orchestra from Florida that played it, not a... So having conquered the world of quantum physics, I decided that really people didn't know enough about chemistry. So, how could people not understand matter? This really perplexed me. So I decided that the best thing to do would be to do a visual history of the molecule, because the molecule has such a, it's really captured the attention of popular culture. You always see that stick and ball structure to show a network of some type. The double helix represents the whole world of genetics. So these things that are very peculiar or very particular to the world of chemistry and biology are used completely and totally out of context. So I set off on my adventure to do this visual history, and I landed up at Linus Pauling, who's the father of, he basically got a Nobel Prize for discovering the structure of the molecules, the chemical bond. So he was a compulsive model maker. And coincidentally, they show he has a correspondence with Calder, who was making these kind of ball and stick things at the same time. So I went there and I shot his models. You can see this is where we started with the shelf of models. You can think of the structure also as the periodic table. Again, music by Patter away. Models here, you see, they were actually manufactured. They're, to, a zillionth of an inch, so that he could figure out the fitting of different molecules together. There are two types of these space-fitting ones. You can see the numbers. Each type of model is to represent a different type of structure. And then ultimately, he discovered the alpha helix, which you'll see with the protein. So, one thing that really interests me about making films about science and engineering and design is there's a great book by Richard Rose called The Making of the Atom Bomb, believe it or not, great read. And he reports about how there were these tests done on scientists, and he said that heightened sensitivity is accompanied in thinking, they record this uncommon sensitivity to experiences, usually sensory experiences, in the beginning of a creative discovery in science. Heightened sensitivity is accompanied in thinking by over-alertness to relatively unimportant or tangential aspects of problems. It makes scientists look for and postulate significance in things which customarily would not be singled out. It encourages highly individualized and even autistic ways of thinking. And I want to, I mean, somebody also wants to compare my films to Bruce Nauman, like The Relentless. But, but I love the idea of this pure observation, which when you get into the, I mean, that's what it is, engineering porn. It's like when you're in the mind of the scientist or the engineer and you're looking at something and the ideas are coming together, you're observing to something, there's this immersion. And as André Bazin, who started the Cahiers du Cinéma, said, he said that science film is the repository of true cinematic beauty, if I may say. But also the idea is that film lets you have a more, or the viewer have a more intimate relationship with the image than is able in reality. So I love that. Something attracts me very much to film. And the other thing is that a realistic representation should also approximate your perceptual and cognitive dynamics of your vision. So I also try to bring along that sense of looking and seeing and be able to look around something into my films. So now that I've shown you how I've started building films that don't have the traditional narrative structure or talking heads, I want to have a really quick, hopefully, digression into film language and what film is, because you're all writers, and film too has like an ABC. And Jean-Luc Godard said, cinema is the truth told 24 times a second. So what film isn't? It's not Post-its with Sharpies. It's not PowerPoint slides. You know, you can't just take one image out and put in another like you're sorting out a slide tray. It takes place over time. It has sound in an image. It's a rectangular way or 16:9 way of framing reality. There are tropes like the dolly and the track and the zoom, which you can see in video games. It connects time and space. It's a way of structuring time. And films are constructed physiologically as well as in a language of frames and shots. So the smallest element is the frame. And when you're looking at a film, it's actually a series of images moving through at 24 frames a second. And you don't see a frame and a dissolve and a frame and a dissolve because there's something which is, you know, I could give an hour lecture with a lot of books open on the latest theories of persistence of vision. But basically the idea is that if a light's flashing at least 16 times a second, it looks like a continuous light, that there's a physical threshold that the retina brain has together. So you're actually constructing a movie when you see it in your mind. Here's part of a really great film that Gustav Deutsch made about what is film. I'm just going to show you a little bit of it. That he
Da in früheren Filmen nur 12 Aufnahmen pro Sekunde möglich waren, mussten diese damals durch Doppelkopieren auf 24 gestreckt werden. Heute können jedoch 24 Bilder in der Sekunde aufgenommen werden. Dadurch sind die wissenschaftlichen Auswertungsmöglichkeiten wesentlich verbessert.
So there's also, I want to recommend to you, I have it somewhere, this book of essays by Divon, and he describes how in the book by Oliver Sacks, Awakenings, that people, when they were awakening from the sleep, they started seeing the world in snapshots, and that when the snapshots came up to basically 10 frames a second, the world can seem continuous to them. And even a rhythm, like if you're beating something when it hits about 16 times a second, it becomes a continuous sound. So he suggests that we may have like a physical threshold that makes the world seem continuous to us, that is 16 frames a second. So it's interesting to think, you know, why do we experience time as something continuous? The other thing is that there's a bandwidth for, I got to speed this up so I can show all the films. There's a bandwidth that we have for taking in printed information. That's about 60 to 100 bits for vision, 50 bits for sound. I can go into all those details, but basically you have a 100-bit threshold, and it doesn't go past that. So if you're listening to something like an interview and there are subtitles or some other captions coming up, you have a limit to how much you can absorb. And I did some experiments.
Barney's New York introduces the Spring Warehouse Sale. Now through February 26th, 255 West 17th Street. 50 to 70% off regular prices on clothing that will make you very happy.
So it's got 2 streams of 2 and 3 second words, both of them. Anyway, so the next thing is that if you want to think about the language, you know, what's a sentence, a word, or a letter? So in film, there are 2 approaches. There's montage, which people associate with Eisenstein, a Russian filmmaker, and he adamantly says that montage is conflict, that you put 2 different shots together to create like a third sensation. It's not merely editing and cutting things down. So it's a very specific way, sort of a thesis, antithesis, synthesis way of reading film. And the other one is deep focus, and that's where you have a frame up and things are going around in the frame, so you can take it in and look at it for a long time. So those are kind of the 2 ways or the language you have for doing that. A third one, a book you should all run out and get. He has a new book now. This was written, I think, in 1998 by Lev Manovich, The Language of New Media. Incredibly prescient. And he talks about the information culture, that now we're experiencing information everywhere. You know, it's a road sign, it's, you know, type over a television program, it's your computer interface, it's layouts in magazines. So we all are reading things all the time visually in this information culture. We get different streams of information, and that combines with the film language. He calls it cinematographics, the idea that you combine graphic design, typography, and cinema. So the question is, how do we use this language? The typical thing that all of you are taught is, you know, the most effective way to get your message across is to tell a story. And Billy Wilder said the 3-part plot is you put your character in a tree, you set the tree on fire, and then you get him out of the tree. And there's Kenyatta Cheese does a lot of stuff with memes where people make GIFs on these little GIF animations out of other movies. And this is his presentation of the plot diagram, point A stuff and then point B. And the Sid Fields has, and there's another guy that teaches these courses, and I found all these different, Robert McKee, guides to the 3-act structure. And then ultimately, this is a site called Story Charts, and this is the plot to Pulp Fiction. And so anything that's moving in time, you're going to say has a narrative. So I beg to differ. I say to all of you, ditch the story and come up with a different way, because we are used to reading different things differently. We are used to, you know, short bursts of information, different types of information coming at it, and to look at your subject and see what type of format or information or modules comes out of it naturally or inherently. I'm going to talk to you really quickly about the database film and the essay film, and then give you some examples. Lev Manovich talks about the database film. And basically, a database is at war with the narrative, he says. And we're living in a database culture. Everybody hears about big data, which is how far ahead. But it's a collection of things. There's no links between them except for what's created through an algorithm or through your design. And algorithms are design. So So there's no thematic development, there's no formal organization, and that's what I think is really interesting, is how you can also make a collection or a taxonomy of things. Here is actually a database film that we made for a short movie for DKNY Fragrances, where the animator used processing to pick up Twitters and then locate them, different words in the different neighborhoods in New York, and when it moves around, you see at different points the actual landscape of Manhattan, which I don't know if we have time to get to. So that's a literal database one. Now I'm going to show you another movie which I made for International Flavors and Fragrances, which is kind of a database. It's all the collecting all the different elements of the process of making and experiencing fragrance, which begins with usually manufacturing a molecule. So now to bring to the end of mine and get in a moment onto the really fun part of the lecture. Near and dear to my heart, which I've shared with Alec Alice, is there's a publication ... which I think you guys probably, I love it, a design magazine that's mostly type. And there was an essay called The Art of the Essay in the ... summer 2004. And the premise is it's about what he calls the essay film. And the idea is there are two forms of essay. One is to develop an argument or a thought process or ask a series of questions. And the other one is to try something. And in this case, he says to attempt making a film. So we can think of the essay film as a space-time in which to realize the adventure of thinking. Mainstream film is in too much of a rush. Plot demands that things happen in the right place at the right time. So finally, I'm going to show you a film that I made about diagrams, which was based on a paper by Barbara Tversky, who's a brilliant scientist in cognitive visualization. And the challenge was, again, setting up these modules about the language of diagrams, but also to say how do we read and how do we understand diagrams without a voiceover. Again, music by the very talented Pat Irwin. You know, it's funny because I just had this vision, you know, I really wanted to film marking a tennis court. Because my God, a line determines the game. You know, how uber diagram is that? So I was trying to find a grass court that they mark in the greater New York vicinity, and I finally found one out at Forest Hills, and I called him up and said, I'm going to make a really strange request. And he's like, oh, we've gotten a lot stranger requests than that. But it's really funny. I mean, it's really hard to make a straight line, walking. I mean, this guy sort of looked like a duck, but he'd mastered the straight line. So I'm going to now move past and show you some of my favorite films that demonstrate other formats by other filmmakers, which are really enjoyable. Peter Greenaway, who I mentioned before, made this movie called H is for House, and he said he's obsessed with numerology, classification, and taxonomies. And he did a lot of experiments where he completely got rid of narrative, which he said is the cement for a film. And eventually he added back in a narrative, but he used this, as he calls it, kind of a grid, a blank grid for structuring his films.
Again, H is for house.
H is for heel, hip, heart, ham, haunch, hair, and head.
R is for Webby. The robin is an abundant and widespread resident.
H is for hawk, hoopoo, hawfinch, heron, harrier.
A is for apple. B is for
H is for house sparrow, hedge sparrow. H is for hen.
C is for
I always like to have a cat somewhere along the way. So now there's a great movie by Hillman Curtis, who unfortunately died, I think, last year. And he made a movie about pentagram, and there's a wonderful movie where the movie becomes a diagram.
Go ahead.
Okay. Pentagram. The Family of Men. In 1962, Alan Fletcher and Colin Forbes, two British people, and Bob Gill, an American, founded a firm, and they called it Fletcher Forbes Gill. And in 1964, Theo Crosby joined them, and he was an architect. And the notion was that if you coupled an architect with graphic designers, it would broaden their opportunity for work. But at that point, Bob Gill, who was getting restless, asked Theo Crosby how long it took to build a building, and Theo Crosby said it took about 4 years, and Bob Gill said, well, that was too long to wait for a proof, so he left. So the business became called Crosby Fletcher Forbes. Then Mervyn Kurlansky, who I believe was Alan Fletcher's assistant, was elevated to a partner, and the business was still called Crosby Fletcher Forbes. And then Kenneth Grange joined, and Kenneth Grange was a product designer, and he wanted the business to be called Crosby Fletcher Forbes Grange, but Mervyn Kurlansky, who, as you can tell, has a big, long Jewish name, got pissed off and said, well, I want my name on the firm if Kenneth Grange gets his name on the firm. And they had some partners weekend, and they had a big fight, and Alan Fletcher was reading a book on black magic, and they named the firm Pentagram, because there were 5 partners. But that didn't work for very long, because then John McConnell joined in 1974, and they were just named in 1972, and there were 6 partners, so Pentagram made no sense, but nobody cared, and they kept the name. And then Ron Herron joined in 1977, and Colin Forbes moved off and founded New York. So the London office became Kenneth Grange, Theo Crosby, David Hillman joined, Howard Brown joined, Pelham joined in 1982, and a guy named Ron Herron came and went. David Pelham came and went, and the New York office, Peter.
The picture. And now there's a great movie that's a movie as a map or a travelogue made by Patrick.
The day we arrived in Derby, Rolls-Royce announced half-year profits up 43% to 70 million, though the chairman would not rule out more job losses, and the shares fell 8%. The English are acknowledged world leaders in fetishism and S&M, Robinson read in the paper. The only company in the world that makes latex sheeting suitable for fetish wear is based in Derbyshire. We wanted to visit Robin Hood's well near Eastwood, but the wood had been fenced off by the owner.
And so it goes. This is one of my favorites. The Van Neistat makes all these movies for Tom Sachs Studio that are hilarious. There's a guide to using the Office. There's a movie about color. This is called A Love Letter to Plywood. I'm just going to show you one section that will, now that you know all about the ABCs of filmmaking, you'll understand how he's using the frame. But again, this is like an instruction manual or a guidebook to something.
The table saw is a witch who will take your finger. We treat her with great care and respect.
Bitte achten Sie auf folgende Durchsage.
When you are at the table saw, you are cutting wood. You are not thinking about anything else. Witches possess great power. If you fail to respect her, she will destroy you.
And finally, I'm sure I'm out of time, but I have to share a wonderful movie, Radio Lab, has been doing a series of video. I think it's by a group called Every Nun. They have a person giving a demonstration. They don't use a voiceover.
For Steve Strogatz, a mathematician who we sometimes have on the show, it all started with a pendulum.
But our teacher handed us a little toy pendulum that was retractable. And then the teacher gave us a stopwatch and said, I want you to time how long it takes for this pendulum to swing back and forth 10 times. Okay, so I do the experiment. And swings click, I record how many seconds it took, and then I write that in my little freshman lab notebook. Well, then he says, now make the pendulum a little bit longer. Do it again. And it takes longer to make the 10 swings, and I write down the number. And I do this 5 or 6 times, and I'm dutifully plotting the results on graph paper, which is what the experiment was really supposed to teach us, how to use graph paper. But what it taught me was this spooky thing was happening, which is that the dots were falling on an arc, on a curve. This curve was a curve I had seen before because I had just learned about it in algebra class, and it's called a parabola. And this really gave me the creeps because it was as if this inanimate thing, this pendulum, knew algebra. How could this thing swinging back and forth know something about parabolas, or how could that be built in? And so it was in that moment that I suddenly understood what people mean when they say there's a law of nature.
Give your audience an original observation. Thank you.
basically what could have been a whole film festival, right? I mean, in one hour, that was really incredible and inspiring. Yeah, let's do it.
The 30-second film festival.
Nice.
Yeah, that's friend of mine, A. Rogers, who is a designer in sense. Any film festival for designers has to start with Yellow Submarine.
Yeah, why not? Well, talking of starting points, you mentioned, you showed us the Eames cards, which were obviously, hugely influential. And I love this idea of building blocks and building a film. But I'm wondering to what extent, the Eames films were influential as well to you, and which other films were sort of influential to you as you were developing your vocabulary?
I have to say it was kind of uncanny. I had seen Powers of 10, but then I thought it was really weird that I was looking at these cards and they had made probably the singularly most original science film where they demonstrate a concept rather than talking about it in a completely innovative way. I didn't show it because I figure you've all seen it. So, yeah, it did influence me, but it wasn't the call to action. I guess I would say it was just an inspiration for how great a movie. And I look at it as a coincidence that I was playing with the Eames cards. No, I mean, it's not a coincidence because all those cards are about science. They're all diagrams of different things. So that might have incited me. In terms of influence, I will never have seen anything that's up for an Oscar, basically, So I mean, there are actually there were waves of experimentation. Peter Greenaway says, in the 60s, they tried to make, books without plots and music without harmony and, completely tried to read painting without representation. And he said, why don't they make movies where they get rid of the narrative? There's a lot of experimentation in the 60s and 70s, and it just seemed to grind to a halt. But there is like the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and Inception, Memento. I mean, there are feature films that really, there was a great article called the Meta Movie.
Right, yeah.
So it's like there's a lot of conversation going on about what actually happened, rather than the film itself. So no, I do tend to, all my favorite films do tend to have a voiceover and a narration. I love Wim Wenders, I love Patrick Keeler, I love, gosh, my mind's completely making, I have a big stack of them.
We will be a film festival. But let's talk a little bit about context, because of viewing, because for the Eames, they had a very special viewing environment in the sense of, world fairs and everyone's seated looking at a screen. You must be creating your films for very different circumstances. People looking on computer monitors largely.
Yeah. I mean, they've all had different histories, I have to say. And I think the great thing now is that you can publish your films online. The electromagnetic spectrum was actually part of the WNET Real New York series, so that was on TV. It's an odd concept. And the IFF one is shown in the lobby, so that has a big projection. That's an ambient piece.
Do these different formats of projection, do they influence the way that you will produce?
Compose a film, yeah. I mean, all of my films I compose basically to telegraph. Anybody that can't read 18-point type or under is welcome to see my films. The diagram film I did through a National Science Foundation grant that I received, and then that was posted on a blog, I think it was Flowing Data. Anyway, and that got about 13,000 counting views, and it's sort of funny to see, you can watch on Vimeo, it's like all of a sudden it'll be being passed around in Iraq and Kuwait, and you'll see these little sort of bursts of viewing activity, which is very rewarding, even if it is small. I mean, the idea of having this global audience is, you know, weighs against having it screened in a movie theater, which, yeah. I mean, the whole viewing spectrum is changing now. And when people say, I saw a TV show, the first thing I say is, like, how did you see it? You know, they download it. Nobody watches TV. So, anyway.
No, it's interesting
long.
to think about the viewing.
Yeah, and also in terms of the three-part structure, I was thinking, you know, that's partly, I think, the success of these TV series is, you know, they never get the man out of the tree. You know, you keep watching and watching and watching, or they set another tree on fire. So.
Terrible TV crack. So, what else did I want to ask you about? Well, actually, one thing that occurred to me was you said you trained as a journalist, and I thought that was quite interesting. That was your kind of entry point into this, and I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about what you think may be the differences between documentary as a form and what you're calling video essay. What are the sort of boundaries between those two? Because you didn't use the word documentary very much.
No. I don't really, I would say I don't. I use a documentary style, but my films are built in their compositions. Gosh, that's a big question I have to think about. I mean, I think the trajectory of writing, writing is like the best training you can have. I mean, you guys are all so smart here because you can carry it through life and use it no matter, you know, I'm constantly writing just film proposals alone. And I wrote a lot of art reviews, which were like haiku. I mean, I wrote for House and Garden, and so I would always get the stories back, and I'd go, there's my adjective. You know? So, and then I started programming, which was a natural transition because programming is writing too. You just have fewer words, but you can define any word you want. So there's a really natural connection, and programs are often really great writers because they have to think structurally and very clearly. So I think that informed my filmmaking approach.
So in a sense, do you kind of write your films first? Is that, or do you build, because the way we were looking, they're built very sort of visually.
Yeah. But there is a kind of each shot and frame are almost like words going together. Somehow I see it as that type of very clear, hewn series of images. And I use I do like the electromagnetic spectrum. I had to get the whole electromagnetic spectrum in basically 9 one-line sentences. So there's a lot of writing there.
Yeah. Well, we're planning to ask the students to actually write their films. You know, first to script them in a fair.
I think that's really, absolutely write out the whole thing and then throw it away. No. No. You should have and write the end first. You know, why are you making this film and how's it going to end? And the other thing, in terms of documentary, I mean, I have this new concept next lecture called P-roll, and there's something called B-roll, which people run footage over while people are talking, and it's usually somebody's talking about making a chair, and you just see all these shots of like, you know, sawdust and things like that. And I'm really interested in this idea of P-roll, where you show the process. You know, the footage that you see is somebody actually doing something, and how you can turn that into a film. Which moments do you pick? So it's authentic to the subject rather than eye candy.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Before we open up to questions, there's one other aspect I want to ask you about, which we didn't actually see that much of today. Often you do actually have people in your films and making things, and you have you've mentioned to us before some of your interviewing techniques, which I thought were very interesting in terms of getting people to open up and really to find their points of enthusiasm. Could you just tell us about that?
Right. I didn't show because I wanted to offer you an alternative. I've done wonderful work with Popular Mechanics, and Alison Teresi, who's their creative director for photography, is here, and a very creative person. And I did a series of films for them about breakthrough innovations And there, I felt, there's a great quote by Marvin Minsky who says, if somebody tells you they discovered this incredible formula for solving this something or other, he said, don't ask them to explain how it works. He goes, ask them how the hell they came up with that idea. So that was my strategy for people to be able to relate to an inventor, or is to get to the genesis of the idea, and somehow, some way they can show you where it was, whether if it's somebody made a wind, a ribbon that vibrates to get wind, and they saw the Tacoma Narrows Bridge vibrating, and somebody else was looking at toilet roll expanding and contracting. So I think it's really good to get people to talk about their inspirations and things that isn't just getting into more and more details about their work. Then, because you can, as a filmmaker, you can see that, you can show that visually. I never feed words to people, and if I don't like how they say it, I don't ask them to repeat it or rephrase it, because I think that people, it's just me, I don't even like telling people what to do, honestly, which is an odd trait for a director. So I think, everybody has their own style. A lot of times I'll have like a producer saying, just tell them, but I find it just kind of goes downhill from there. So if they don't say what you want, for me the worst thing is in interviewers when people have these really bland answers. So to get people to be not just say fabulous or interesting, but to give specific examples are good. And also if they get really tense, give them a prop. People are really good with props. So those are some of my hints.
Good tips, I like it. All right, let's see if some of the first year students have some questions for you, and then we'll take other ones from members of the public. So, and will you mention your name first?
My name's Lauren, and I'm first year in the program. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about your creative process, so maybe you keep a journal or video journal, like how do you kind of come up with your ideas and elaborate on them?
Developing.
Project, I guess, developing, yeah.
I would say that I have a lot of influencers in terms of movie makers and scientists and people who I'm very inspired, like Linus Pauling, for instance. By reading about them, there's a lot you can learn. And from Linus Pauling, you find out about Richard Hayward, who was an architect who did the drawings of the molecules. So usually I kind of follow my network of kind of my influencers and follow things like that. So that's probably the way I mostly do it. I look at a lot of, read, go to movies. And that's what I found even when I was preparing the lecture. It's like there's a movie I didn't show by Hollis Frampton and Peter Greenaway and Lev Menowitz is talking about them. And you kind of work your way through that and find something that you think is interesting. And then it has to be cinematic. So you look for the aspect of it which translates into film, even if it's using ping pong.
My name is Mary, I'm a first year. A lot of your videos kind of came across as educational. So do you see an opportunity for video-based education that hasn't really been tapped into?
Yes, I think that the whole MOOC thing is, you won't even recognize it in 3 years. I think that it's starting with the talking head. There's so much coverage. There's massive online courses. And then there are a few cult teachers that they send around the world, to be filmed in exotic locations to talk about history. And I think people are just finding their way around it. And I think also the more different arts are included, like if there are filmmaking classes or drawing classes, they will become more visual. So yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity to really inspire people and engage people, and again, not just to have this kind of dry, linear delivery, that people are really smarter than that. So yeah, I think it's a great area for creative people.
My name is Magnus, I'm a first year student. I was wondering who's shooting your films. You have a DP or
That's also a very good question. I actually shot the electromagnetic spectrum video on 60mm film myself. So I've taken classes in cinematography and filmmaking actually after I was a filmmaker, just to make sure I knew what I was doing, which I didn't know. But I do have relationships with camera people. I like to work with a camera person because they're filming all the time. There's a big trend now to be a one-man band where you shoot, you edit, you script it. But for me, I have respect for the craft. And there are people that know how to move the camera, they know how to frame things. So I have worked a lot with specific camera people.
How do you communicate?
You know, it's interesting, they do begin to know your style. So that's why it's great to have a team, and Pat Irwin always has been doing my music too. So it's great to build relationships. The other thing which I encourage you all is I always say, become friends with somebody that does sound. Werner Herzog actually doesn't shoot his films, but he does do the sound on a lot of them. So knowing how to do sound is really important because the film is half sound. And your film can have kind of a crappy image, and if it has a really good sound, it's credible.
The other way around is not.
No, it isn't. We're all suspicious of the image.
Hi, my name is Justin. Actually, I was going to ask you about what's the role of audio and music in your film.
Well, also because so much of my commercial work, I've interviewed everybody from Rem Koolhaas to Anna Wintour, the devil herself. And when I started making my own movies and doing my own projects, I just did not want anyone saying anything. So I have been involved in a many-year backlash against people talking, but I do feel, it's like, and this is also true too. I mean, there's a level of over-determination in our culture now where everybody's telling you what to think. And I think the worst offending, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but are those online courses where somebody's animating and telling you something. And it's just, you hit the 100-bit overload, first of all, really quickly. And also, it's like if you're drawing it, is that explaining it? Can I look at it for a while? So I don't want to tag music. Don't tag music. Even any type of ambient sound will be really inventive. I didn't show you something I just did for Stone Island where they did a really interesting sound mix. So whenever you can, if you can record some type of ambient sound that goes with it, again, it keeps people's attention up. You have to get used to it, but a soundtrack can really dominate it and drive it. And what you want to do is to have it, add another layer to it.
That's really interesting the way you describe that. That sort of non-prescriptive sort of mode of delivery, because I was feeling that when I was watching your films, with these moments of dreamlike qualities to them, especially with the really fast cuts that you do that are quite trippy, and
nobody's ever said that to me before.
Oh, okay. I'm not a film critic, obviously. So.
No, I like that.
But where you leave that rational side of your brain, the learning side, and you're kind of off into a different kind of headspace for moments.
Yeah, you should let the viewer observe things, and you should let them experience things for themselves, because even if it's not right away, I think there'll be a big takeaway. I mean, it's what they said in the great essay. I'll get you a copy of it. I'll scan it and give you a copy. You want people to have space to time and think. Space and time to think.
Yeah. Rare commodity. One sec, we've got to do our duty, okay? We'll get to you.
Hello.
You posed an interesting question during your presentation. You said, what kind of modules can you come up with if you take out the story or the narrative? And in film, there are different levels, visual, audio that help you do that. Have you seen any examples in writing where you think that people are getting closer to being able to take out the narrative?
I think there's a lot of that. I mean, like George Perec, and I mostly read nonfiction. So, but I don't know, what about all those David Edgars and people I haven't read? I mean, there's a lot of experimental prose where you have to construct the meaning. So, but I'll think about that. It's a good question, things that I've read recently that...
But is that what you were interested in, finding some reading, or just other examples?
Or the way it's structured.
If there was something, that you have read whose structure sort of can capture the space and the experiential aspects that film does.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. You know, to think about the flip side, and also writing that has different structures and sort of headers and chapters and.
I don't know about in terms of writing, but certainly in terms of visually, there are interesting circumstances when it, moves from a book to a film and from a film to a book, right? Like someone like Chris Marker or someone like that.
Yeah. The master of the film essay.
Yeah. Right, let's take a couple more questions from, well, I'll come back to you, Susan. Let's get some other people in the mix. Did you have a question there?
Yes, Jane.
Hello.
Hi. I'm interested, that was a rush, thank you. I wanted to ask about purpose. So, as I say, the diagram is one on Harvard University. What was your purpose, didactic? What were you trying to achieve?
Originally, and it still may happen, I have this tension between doing work for clients and my own projects, which I'm slowly working my way through to doing my own projects. But that is intended to be an actual longer format movie where you interview everybody from people who work in patent offices to landing airplanes on these big diagrams. So something like that is really a teaser for reading and understanding and using diagrams. And same thing with the molecules actually is intended as a piece of a larger.
Movie then would be,
It could be like 40 minutes or an hour.
But its purpose would be to teach.
Yes, yeah, informational, and to entice people to engage with the understanding of their cultural things.
Hi, Howard Stein. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was great. You were showing the models of the molecules that Linus Pauling made, and I just want to understand if I got you correctly. Did you say that it was not possible to show the context of chemistry, of these chemistry modules in film? Because I'm curious as to whether there is a way to show, the context of these, because you showed them as beautiful objects,
yeah,
and yet they seem to be disconnected from their reality.
Exactly. I think that's very true. And I do have a film with a long interview with a science historian named Mary Jo Nye, who's a chemistry scholar, and I interviewed her about how Pauling went from being a paper and pencil chemist to being a model building chemist, which was a big transition in his point. And in that, there's much more context, and there are so many drawings and sketches and things that he did. Actually, just an aside on Linus Pauling, they have tons and tons of notebooks, and as they told me at the archive, nothing scratched out. Can you imagine being that accurate in your thinking, that it's always precisely so? But yeah, I think it cries, again, this was just an immersive feeling to show that a scientist, that they were functioning models for understanding, the fit between different atoms to make a structure that he used, but to bring you into the great visual beauty.
But that's what I thought.
If I
Yeah.
could just follow up, you made, I saw on your website, a beautiful film with, about the work that the home engineering company does.
Yes, yeah, thanks.
And that mechanical patterning,
Yeah.
I thought was fantastic because it actually, you didn't need to see it create anything else. It was what it was, and even if you saw it on film rather than a physical model, it wasn't diminished by being on film.
Right, right, interesting.
It was so magical to see that object. I mean, I love to see it.
They're great.
But it also...
They're very small. No. No.
It's also because you worked a lot with scent and perfume, and which cannot be represented physically. So there's an interesting dichotomy because you did quite a lot of work on scent, and yet there you're left to just show the tools.
Right.
Right?
As I say, fragrance is chemistry and drag. To your point, I mean, the films show the phases of designing or engineering, which is, other movies, it is sketching, it is building models. So in some ways, I'm showing kind of the visual imagination of somebody making something and what they make. But I think definitely the molecules have a much bigger context to which they could join. So, thank you.
Although I think what they did do really beautifully, for me anyway, was just sort of take me into, like you say, the mindset of the person who made them, Pauling, and just the rough-hewn quality of them, and you could sort of get this sense of someone sort of working through a problem with those pieces of cardboard and stuff in a way that you don't get from a computer diagram or some, when it seems like a representation of the final idea.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he did. I mean, when he was sick in bed in London, that's when he figured out the structure of the double helix, just folding paper. I mean, I didn't have time to put them in the slides, but he would fill balloons with marbles. He would take, these different shaped calendars they had in the 60s that were these, octagonal, and glue them together in a structure. And plastic fish, I mean, he was a completely mad model maker.
Let's take a couple more questions. Okay, Susan.
I was wondering if a movie which is very linear, doesn't have really a start and an end, something between, is not...
Don't say that. No.
How is it not considered narrative?
That is a narrative, beginning, middle, and end. That's the classic narrative plot structure.
You mean even these examples?
Yes, even in the film
Yeah.
you showed tonight, you consider them to be non-narrative.
Yeah.
How can you actually escape the narrative?
Yeah, and that's what Peter Greenaway said. Anything that happens in time, you see as a narrative. And the really interesting thing is Barbara Tversky did some studies where even when you ask people to describe something that's a cycle, where you plant the seed, it waters, it grows, and then it dies, and that's a cycle, people will draw, and they describe it as a cycle, they'll draw it in the timeline. They don't see time as bending back and repeating itself. They see time as a timeline. So it may be something cognitive, that people don't see things as a loop or a set. They just see things in terms of time moving forward, which kind of goes back to that idea that we have this, how we do put time together that lets us be film.
Well, I think our time has bended back.